Hello, and welcome to a bonus box of Warhammer 40k's Grim History from the Beyond. I'm Zeckthar, and today I will give chronicling of what we couldn't in last week's show, the turning of the Sons of Malice to Chaos.
Now, the Sons of Malice are a renegade chapter of Chaos Space Marines who turned to the service of the minor Chaos god Malice, sometime prior to the start of the 13th Black Crusade and 999.M41. They are the enemies of the Imperium of Man and the other forces of Chaos alike, and have battled both successfully during the recent campaigns of the 13th Black Crusade, fought against Abaddon the Despoiler near the Eye of Terror. They seek to reclaim their lost chapter homeworld of Celius, and carry forth the plans of Malice to unleash the wrath of the Renegade God upon both the ruinous powers and the Lord Charon of mankind. While we do not know what founding they are from, nor even their original name, we do have a very clear documentation on their turning by records from Inquisitor Solomon Pietus, a senior member of the Ordo Hereticus. The events leading to the chapter's excommunication began following the successful end of the Celix 225 campaign, in which 3 sub-oceanic hive cities in the rebellious Celix system were scoured of the heretics who were threatening to depressurize them, as an expression of their misguided devotion. Cathal, captain of the first company of the Sons of Malice, led the chapter victory rites that bordered on cannibalism, which was observed by Inquisitor Pietus. Although flesh-eating rituals are not uncommon amongst the Space Marines, Pietus was obviously unacquainted with the barbarous customs of the Space Marines, and was determined to deal with these heretics. Pietus called for a strike force of the Adepta Sororitas, of the Order of Our Martyred Lady, and 5 regiments of the Astra Militarum to eliminate the chapter. Pietus had his combined forces fall upon the Sons of Malice when their guard was down, right at the height of their victory celebration, and they attacked the chapter with fire and fury. Yet, the attack utterly failed. The strike force found Captain Cathal and his company a horde of fevered maniacs, having worked themselves into a state of animalistic barbarity over the course of their celebrations. Cathal's armor was splattered in gore, and blood ran from his mouth as he presided over the ceremony. Cathal and his brethren fell upon the Imperial strike force with a savagery the Inquisitor was utterly unprepared for. The Sisters of Battle fought bravely, but their numbers were few too, and their faith, though strong, could not overcome the sheer fury of Cathal and his warriors. By the light of a burning torch, Cathal cornered the Inquisitor, then dragged him to the altar within the chapter's inner chambers, where he was ritually sacrificed. Word later arrived from the High Lords of Terra that the chapter was to be offered the chance to repent their sins and undertaking a 50 standard year long penitent crusade. But the chapter master refused. He would accept neither censure nor punishment. Moved by his own sense of honor, he allowed the imperial envoy to depart unscathed, convincing that his chapter's long history of service to the Imperium would vindicate them of the charges that they had considered baseless. Yet the murdered Inquisitor had sent urgent and skewed accounts to the High Lords of Terra, and with trouble so close to the Cadian gate, the panic response of the Imperium was swift, brutal, and sudden. An extermination fleet arrived at the Celius system within solar months. They would not listen to any of the chapter's brief messages, and their assault forced the Astartes to flee into the Eye of Terror aboard their battle barge, the Labyrinth. In doing so, they left their homeworld undefended. The grisly tendencies that had caused their excommunication were found to be rooted in the barbaric practice of the natives of Celis. The tribes were almost entirely eradicated by the Cadian 331st Regiment in a planet-wide campaign of genocide, and Celius was declared perdita to all other imperial forces. This heinous act earned the Sons of Malice their declaration by the Senatorium Imperialis as excommunicate traitores. To this day, they reside within the Eye of Terror, where they wage a hate-filled war against any they encounter, be they the servants of the Imperium, or even other followers of Chaos. During the next 1,000 standard years, Anarch Cathal, now the chapter master, bided his time, slaughtering everything around him in the name of the renegade god Malice, waiting to strike back at the Cadians. His time came when Cadia fell in 999.M41, when Abaddon the Despoiler began the 13th Black Crusade. His revenge came at the Battle of Faith's Anchorage, which all started after a mishap in the warp sent a portion of the remnants of the Imperial Navy's battle fleet Cadia and the Cadian shock troops, forced fleeing from Cadia's destruction into the chaos-invaded Agrippina system. Panic ensued as the lost ships tried to get their bearings, but their commander, General Maximus Octavian Gruber III, quickly restored order. That is, until the Sons of Malice arrived. Anarch Cathal licked his lips with anticipation. This is what he had been waiting 1,000 years for. Springing his ambush, the Imperial Navy forces had no choice but to flee, as they consisted only of a few troop transports and the poorly armed Claymore-class corvettes named Lord Lieutenant Berwick and the Venerable Warrior, both warships of the battle fleet Cadia. It was their identification as Cadian vessels, however, that had drawn the Sons of Malice to hunt them. Cathal savored each moment as he fantasized the panic and fear in each Cadian aboard the corvettes. They would finally pay for their crimes of purging his beloved homeworld of Celius, and soon his vow of exterminating every surviving Cadian in the galaxy would soon be complete. It didn't take long before the Void battle soon went in the Sons of Malice's favor, and the commander of the Cadian flotilla's surviving ground forces, General Gruber of the Astra Militarum, deployed his remaining Cadian shock troops on a water, ice, and promethium mining moon of the world of Morton's Quay, itself a naval reserve outpost called Faith's Anchorage, to make a last stand. But before fortifying an abandoned mining facility on the moon with void shield generators to force an infantry engagement rather than face an orbital bombardment, Gruber had Captain Zabusko of the Lord Lieutenant Berwick try and draw away the Chaos fleets to give his troops time to complete the fortifications. Zabusko did so and also agreed to try to reach Terra if his ship survived to warn the Imperium that Cadia had finally fallen. Unfortunately, neither of the Imperial Navy vessels managed to escape the Agrippina system, as the Venerable Warrior was hunted down and destroyed by the Sons of Malice's warship, and the Berwick was so badly damaged that its killer field failed when it attempted a warp jump, destroying the vessel in a great explosion. There would be no one to take the word of the fall of Cadia to Terra. The Sons of Malice fleet next began an orbital bombardment of the Imperial-occupied mining facility on Faith's Anchorage in an attempt to overload its void shields, even as war bands of the Sons of Malice Chaos Space Marines, supported by swarms of Chaos cultists and cybernetic mech slaves, served as cannon fodder. Though the Cadians successfully eliminated wave after wave of the Chaos Force's mortal troops, there was little doubt that the heretic Astartes would eventually overwhelm the remaining Cadian defenders under General Gruber's command. Then, disaster struck. The orbital bombardment finally brought down the Cadians' void shields, which, combined with the direct assault of the Sons of Malice, eventually wiped out Gruber and the remaining Cadian shock troops. Cathal's smile widened cruelly as he marched towards the bloody general. Gruber was sprawled on the ground, his left leg trapped under a pile of rubble, attempting to grasp his fallen plasma pistol. Alas, he could not reach it. Cathal surmised it lay about a foot from his grasping hand. As Cathal marched towards the general, the Cadian must have felt his heavy footfalls, and his hand froze as he turned his head to face his doom. Cathal shook his head mockingly and said with a smile, "You really should take better care of your weapons, comrade." Gruber's eyes filled with fear as he lunged again for his pistol. Yet he was truly trapped, just inches from his salvation. The Son of Malice casually walked up and picked up the pistol, examined it, and then tossed it towards the only exit. It clattered across the room, landing just short of the only entrance still intact. Grabbing the general with one hand, he pulled the small human from the rubble, tossing him unceremoniously on his rump a few meters away. He then tossed Guthar his combat blade and stepped back. "No, Commander. I'm going to give you a fighting chance," Canal said with a chuckle. His mirth was cruel, and it slowly turned to a snarl as he spat. "Much better than your people gave me on Celia." Guthar licked his dry lips as he glanced at the fallen plasma pistol, which still remained his only hope. Glancing back at the massive space marine, his face went white as he watched Cathal lick the blood of his just recent comrades from his chainsword. The last words Maximus Octavian Gruber III heard was Cathal, who smiled cruelly as he said, "You shall taste delicious. I shall save your heart for last." A few moments later, the massive son of Malice left the command center. In his left hand, he casually placed the combat knife back in its sheath. In his other, he held the general's heart. And as he bit deep into the still beating organ, he sighed in ecstasy. His vow was complete. Yet, while Cathal was getting his revenge, word of the Sons of Malice's assault against the survivors of Cadia had reached other Chaos forces in the region, and soon Chaos Space Marine warbands of the Sons of Slaughter, Crimson Slaughter, and the Black Legion, along with 5 other traitor legions, had arrived in the system, eager to gain their own share of glory in the extermination of the last of the Cadians. At the same time, another Imperial naval fleet, under the command of Admiral Damartage, had also been fleeing the loss of Cadia and been caught in the same warp mishap that had brought Gruber and his troops to the Agrippina system. Though Damartage's fleet arrived above Faith's Anchorage too late to save the Cadian infantry forces engaged with the Sons of Malice on the moon below, it did launch an assault against the gathering of Chaos forces. The suddenness of the Imperial fleet's appearance caught the Chaos fleet completely off guard, and they were forced to engage the Imperial warships before they could retrieve the Sons of Malice's forces, mopping up the last of the Cadian defenders on Faith's Anchorage. While the Imperial warships were able to fire off multiple surprise volleys at the Chaos fleet, the heretic Astartes eventually recovered and focused their fire on Damartage's flagship, the Grand Alliance. The flagship took heavy damage and began to drift further into the Chaos fleet, where it came under even heavier fire and was unable to pull away. Yet the Grand Alliance's salvation suddenly appeared in the form of the Space Wolves strike cruiser, Starkestad, which attacked the Chaos vessels and brought the Grand Alliance enough time to withdraw to safer space. Together, the reinforced Imperial fleet eventually defeated the Chaos Void forces, and few Chaos warships remained to disengage and flee into the void. Next, General Isaiah Benedict of the Astra Militarum deployed his Cadian shock troops from Damartage's fleet to Faith's Anchorage, and over the next 2 solar weeks eliminated the Sons of Malice's troops who had been stranded on the moon. The Battle of Faith's Anchorage ended with the death of the last heretic, but this marked only the start of Admiral Damartage and General Benedict's ultimate successful campaign to clear the Agrippina system of all traces of the forces of chaos. Afterwards, what remained of General Gruber was buried in a colossal marble mausoleum erected on Faith's Anchorage. It was constructed near the Starlight Graveyard that held the Cadian guardsmen who had fought beside him to the last. But you may ask, what became of Anarch Cathal? That remains to be seen by the Imperium of Man. His body was not found among the dead by those that purged Faith's Anchorage. Perhaps he escaped, or he was simply destroyed in a blast of fire and flame. Well, I'm not really supposed to tell you this, but because Euxin is not around, I'll go ahead and let you know what happened to Anarch Cathal. After surviving in the harsh winter wilds of the moon for nearly 2 decades, he slipped aboard a transport vessel that was headed towards Celia, or what the Empire now calls Perdita. Now upon his homeworld, he has done something that is truly strange for a Chaos Space Marine. In fact, now that I think about it, it is truly something strange for a loyal Astartes. He cast aside his sword for farming equipment. Apparently, he felt that his vow had been completed, and he now lives in a humble cabin on the edge of a few acres of land. He keeps to himself. Yet who knows? Malice is not one to let go of one of his followers, and one day Cathal may once again be called to slaughter in the Renegade God's name. Yet Malice is fickle, so only time will really tell. I hope you liked this bonus box, and I hope as well it answered questions about this strange chapter. If you enjoyed this, please like, follow, subscribe, and comment. And as always,
until next time, this is Zeckthar, signing off.